Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick review for you guys on the special segments within triangles. The first thing I want to remind you of is our silly little saying that's going to help us here. It's anybody in my ceiling, please bring cinnamon, apple, oatmeal. And we're going to go ahead through and we're going to talk about these things in the order in which you see them here. So first we'll do angle bisectors, then we'll do medians, then we'll do perpendicular bisectors, and lastly, altitudes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at are the angle bisectors that exist within our triangles. So for this, I need to make sure that I'm looking for congruency marks at my angles. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to take each of my angles. These pictures are not going to be very accurate. But there's my first angle. I've bisected it. I've cut it into two congruent pieces. My next angle, I've bisected it, two congruent pieces. My last angle, bisected, three congruent pieces. Now, obviously, those aren't very accurate. However, what's important is that you're looking for congruency marks at your angles. Look for congruence marks at your angles. That is what you are looking for. Okay, so let's do another example here. So again, you see, now that I've drawn those in, I have my congruency marks at my angles. Now, all of those intersect, or should intersect if I did this properly, at a single point, which is going to be called your incenter. So angle bisector goes with your incenter. All right, the next thing we're going to look at, anybody in my medians. Okay, so looking at medians, what I'm going to do to draw these in is I'm going to look for the midpoint of each of my sides. Got the midpoint of each of my sides, and I'm going to connect that midpoint to the angle opposite of it. That one's not very accurate, that last one, sorry. Okay, so the key things to look for here are congruence marks on your sides. Then connect to the opposite angle. So I'm looking for congruence marks on my side, which is going to connect to my opposite angle. Again, let's look at another example here. Midpoint, 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 connect to the opposite angle. So all of my points then, the green example is better than the orange, but all of my points should intersect in the centroid. Medians goes with centroid. Anybody in my ceiling, please bring. Please bring stands for perpendicular bisectors. So now I'm looking for my perpendicular bisectors. So now this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my midpoint, but then instead of connecting it to an angle, like I do for my median, I'm going to draw a line straight up and down that is perpendicular. So what I'm looking for here are these tick marks and a perpendicular. So look for congruence, ticks on sides, and perpendicular, which means we're looking for the right angle box. Oh, that's weird. We're looking for congruence marks. Oh, there it is. I don't know how to make that bigger, guys. Look for congruence marks and perpendiculars. Okay, so let's do a couple more of these for you. Here is my midpoint, and I want, instead of connecting this to an angle, I want to just make sure that I have a perpendicular. And then my last side, here's my midpoint. I want to make sure that I have a perpendicular. And then all of those should intersect in a point, perpendicular, bisector. Please bring cinnamon. This is our circumcenter. There, I fixed it. Oh, fixed it for you a little bit there, at least. Okay, and last example, I'm going to do it one more time. So I have midpoint, but I need a perpendicular. Midpoint, but I need a perpendicular. And midpoint, but I need a perpendicular. So for my perpendicular bisectors, I'm looking for congruence tick marks on my sides and a perpendicular mark. And the last thing we need to talk about are the altitudes. Okay, so here for an altitude, I'm going to start at an angle, and I'm going to drop a perpendicular. So let's say I'm starting with this angle at the top first. I'm going to go straight from that angle, straight down in a straight perpendicular line to my base. Then I'm going to look at a different angle. Let's look at this angle here. I need to go straight down to my base at a perpendicular. And my last one, looking at this angle here, I'm going to go straight down to my base at a perpendicular. So here, all three of these points or lines intersect at that point right there, which is called my orthocenter. For a right angle, it's always going to be at that box. So let's make some notes. First of all, you need to look for only a perpendicular. Just a perpendicular. There's not going to be any tick marks, because if there's tick marks, it's a perpendicular bisector. So I just want a perpendicular. Okay, some other things I'm going to talk to you about, though, are this is going to be on the hypotenuse, or I'm sorry, will be at the right angle for a right triangle. Will always be at the right angle for a triangle. Also, if obtuse triangle, then it's going to be outside of the triangle. So we've got some points here. We want to look for a perpendicular only. It'll be at the right triangle if it's a right triangle. If it's an obtuse triangle, it's going to be outside. And if it's acute, it's going to be inside. Okay, but main thing is this right here. You're looking only for a perpendicular. Only for a perpendicular. So let me do that last example then. This is an obtuse triangle, so my orthocenter is going to be outside. I have altitude going straight down. I have an altitude going straight perpendicular. I have an altitude going straight perpendicular. All of these lines would intersect in this point right here, which is called the orthocenter. Okay, so just to review, we've got these 4 different types of special segments, okay? Your altitudes are when you just have a perpendicular. Perpendicular bisector was when we had a perpendicular mark and congruency tick marks on my sides. Angle bisector, just the angle tick marks. And the last one was medians, where I'm only going to have tick marks on my sides, and then it's just going to connect to the angle opposite. So I hope this helped. Please rewind and keep looking at these. This is going to be very important to understand for your test.